welcome to this channel. Today, in the previous past few days, we had been uploading a number of thoughts, which, as far as we know, a number of people would have watched those thoughts, and yes, of course, they might have been useful for those people. But today, here we are having something, some different question paper actually we are having. And this is basically here we will talk about the question which are given in the question papers of literature, English literature. And as a number of people, all of us know that the students in schools or in a number of universities also, and the people who are studying English literature and in universities and colleges also, there are a number of questions which they have to study. Okay. And the main thing is that when we are talking about the question paper of literature, English literature, we are given 15 minutes to study the paper also, because in English we have a number of things to write, जिसमें से कि हमारा composition is also there, 300 to 350 to 400 words, and then we have passage also. Passage के भी हमें questions के answers लिखने होते हैं, and we have that letter also. बहुत सारी चीजें होती हैं इसमें. But the main thing is that कि when we are talking about this all, so we have to see कि we are writing that answers in a better way, just like the ones which have been given by the meritorious or the students who scored good marks. The students who are writing the suitable answers, the good answers which have been given by the students, that what are the points, certain points they keep in mind, क्या चीजें वो ध्यान में रखते हैं जिसकी वजह से उनके आंसर इतने सही जाते हैं. So it is not, besides everything else, if your preparation is well, then this is not a big deal to score good marks. The marks can be scored easily as far as the questions are in literature have been given. They are not that tough. Okay, basically as you already know कि composition is a part of the question paper. एक composition आता है question paper में जहाँ आपको 300 से 350 से 400 शब्द तक, that is the word limit, and you have to write the questions. So here you can see that we are having multiple questions, but the main first question is for 20 marks, over 25 marks here, but generally it is, as far as I know, most of the at the present time, I guess it is for 20 marks, or it might be for 25 marks, but that is not the point. Here the point is that कि how we are going to study, कैसे इसका आंसर हम लिख सकते हैं सही से. ठीक है, क्या चीजें इसमें हमें ध्यान में रखनी है जिनसे हम इनका आंसर सही से लिख सकते हैं. Write an original short story that begins with the words "It is not my fault he shouted." So here we are having a story. यहाँ पर हमारे पास एक कहानी है. ठीक है, कहानी क्या है यहाँ पर? What is the main thing is that कि here there is a child. Okay, here there is a child, Rohan, and Rohan, compared to that, what is his interest? Rohan has taken a totally different subject. Yes, he has taken that subject of science. He has taken that subject of science, which is not which is not his interest. Okay, which is out of his interest. Okay, his interest was in commerce, which has been given in the story later on. It has been mentioned that he wanted to take commerce, but out of the pressure in his family, and basically because he wanted to study, because he would have a number of career options, and science will give him a number of opportunities. That was the belief in his family, and yes, of course, he had taken science. Just listening to those people who was speaking a number of advantages, who were talking about the number of advantages of taking science. What is given in the story? "It's not my fault," he shouted with tears running down his cheeks. Tears of anger and frustration. Yes, anger he was having because he had taken a totally different subject, and then it was not his fault. He's had scored poor marks just because of taking up subject which was not his, which was not a part of his interest. Okay, the studies were not a part of his interest, and yes, of course, he has somewhere his result was growing. His result was going quite poor. Okay, "It's not my fault," he shouted with tears running down his cheeks, tears of anger and frustration. His parents, What is given? It is written, his parents were sitting there looking stunned. It was the day of the annual report card, and the principal would hand over the report card personally. Why the principal was directly giving the report card to his parents? क्यों principal directly दे रही थी? Because the result was actually quite poor enough that the result was, even the report card was to be handed over to the parents by the principal herself. The principal was giving that report card. They knew that Rohan had not been doing well, but they could never imagine that he would fail. That was a quite bad one result. Okay, so he was a good boy, nice child, and his behavior was quite good enough, fair and very friendly type of nature he had. And in class 10th he had secured 92%. He had got very good marks, and his parents were proud of him, but they were, it was because he was such a nice student, so they could not accept that fact that he had done such poor, he had performed so poorly in his examinations of class 11th. So Rohan cried and kept blaming his parents that they were responsible for his failures, since they had forced him to opt for science, which was never his cup of tea. He wanted to go for commerce. कॉमर्स लेना चाहता था, साइंस लेनी पड़ी उसको. And yes, of course, that was the reason why he did not perform that well. जितना उसने 10th क्लास में अच्छा परफॉर्म किया था, that good was his performance was not that good. The principal got up and tried to soothe him down. No, Rohan's parents were still in shock to say anything. The principal looked at them sympathetically and spoke calmly. It is not the end of his better performance. ऐसे करके उन्होंने उनको समझाने की कोशिश की. We have to deal with the situation calmly and rationally and look for a solution rather than play the blame game. Okay, she tried to give a solution for that problem. Rohan's parents, Mr. and Mrs. Sharma, looked slightly relieved. The principal said that there were two options before them. Either Rohan could fail class 11th and continue with science, or he could switch to commerce and be promoted to class 12th. A gleam of happiness darted through Rohan's eyes, and he looked at his parents. They were actually listening, and yes, seeing Rohan's hopeful expression, the principal warned him that if he chooses the second option, he would have to work twice as hard, since he would have to cover the class 11th syllabus as well. उन्होंने क्या बताया कि अब अगर वो कॉमर्स लेता है तो फिर उसको क्लास 11th का भी सिलेबस पढ़ना होगा कॉमर्स में, जो कि उसके लिए थोड़ा सा हार्ड वर्किंग चीज हो जाएगी. एंड यह देयर, yes, of course he will be having the burden of studying the class 11th syllabus as well. But what was the situation, what was the case, and what was the thing over there? Rohan was more than willing to agree to anything if he could only give up that full chemistry. He did not want to go for that chemistry. And yes, if he will not have to study chemistry, he can study more and more for getting good marks in commerce. He knew that he was capable of hard work, and now he had the motivation to work harder. It was just over a year since that fateful day when the Sharmas had sat in the principal's office feeling that that was the end of the better performance for Rohan. But Rohan did perform better. He performed better later on. What is given? They क्या line है? The line has been given. They were there again in the school that day, but for a very different reason. इस बार वो फिर से आए थे जब स्कूल में, when the results were being distributed, and at that time they had come to watch their son getting the principal's medal for the most meritorious student of that year. And yes, Rohan topped the school, and what could have been a disaster turned out to be a triumph. अब जो है, what happened? His performance grew better. His performance grew quite better. Okay, so he had performed quite better, and yes, that was a very positive thing for him. And yes, now his parents were very delighted to hear of his good performance. They were very delighted to hear that their son was getting a medal from the principal, and he had performed better after taking commerce for studies.